Today, we're wrestling with something really universal, how society, especially medicine, handles aging, frailty,
Yeah.
and, the end of life.
Yeah, and we're drawing on Atul Gawande's work here. It's full of these powerful stories and research that really map out, well, this huge shift in how we experience mortality over the last century or so.
Right. And our goal, our mission for this deep dive is to kind of unpack this paradox.
Mm,
Modern medicine, it can keep us going longer than ever before, right?
right.
But does it?
hmm
Does it always give us dignity, purpose, autonomy in those final years?
That's the core question. Often it seems like it doesn't. We get the quantity, maybe not the quality.
So we need to look at the biology, the institutional failures, but also some surprisingly simple human ideas for making that last chapter better.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating and frankly crucial topic.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this change, the source material gives us these two really starkly different examples. First, there's the author's grandfather in India, Sitaram.
Right. Sitaram Gawande lived to be almost 110.
Incredible. And totally surrounded by family, still seen as the chief of the house, making decisions, even riding a horse sometimes in his old age.
Yeah, deeply integrated, venerated, that traditional experience of vellice, or deep old age.
Now compare that to Alice Hobson.
Yeah.
She's the author's wife's grandmother.
Alice, yes, a very independent American woman, lived alone for decades.
But her decline wasn't like Sitaram's. It was medicalized, wasn't it? Falls, doctors.
Exactly, a series of crises managed by the system, specialists, hospital visits, and eventually she ends up in an institution, Longwood House.
And the result for her, despite all the medical attention, was, well, deep unhappiness, a loss of control.
A profound loss of autonomy. Her story really captures that dramatic shift. Think about it. Before 1945, most people died at home.
Managed by family.
Right. But by the 80s, in developed countries, that number just plummeted down to like 17%.
So we essentially outsourced aging and dying, moved it out of sight into hospitals, into nursing homes.
We did. And that came with a huge mindset shift, too. Well, death used to be seen as just normal, part of life. But modern medicine, maybe unintentionally, started treating mortality like a disease to be cured.
Like the ultimate failure if someone dies.
Precisely. Even though intellectually doctors know death isn't failure, it's normal. The culture, the whole system, acts like it's a technical problem we just haven't solved yet.
And this relentless focus on just extending existence, regardless of the quality.
It's actually a pretty recent experiment, historically speaking, and the data suggests it's not working that well when it comes to the human side of things. We're often sacrificing quality of life for just more time.
Okay, so that's this sort of philosophical backdrop. Let's get into the unavoidable physical reality, the biology of decline, because that's what forces the issue of dependence, right?
Absolutely. It's relentless, and the details Gwande provides are visceral, things you don't normally think about. Your tooth enamel wears down, your jaw muscles, they lose like 40% of their mass.
Wow. And bones.
Bones lose density about 1% a year after you hit 50. But interestingly, while bones get lighter, other tissues get stiffer. Arteries, especially the aorta.
The big one coming off the heart.
Yeah, it gets calcified. Surgeons apparently describe it as feeling crispy.
Crispy. That's evocative. And the brain.
The brain shrinks too, significantly. By the time you're 70, there can be almost 2.5 centimeters of space between the brain and the skull.
Which sounds like a lot.
It is. And that's why falls are so dangerous for older people.
Yeah.
That space means the brain can move more on impact, increasing the risk of tearing blood vessels, causing a hemorrhage.
It paints a picture of gradual, inevitable fragility.
Exactly. And what's really striking is how little of this seems pre-programmed. The source suggests genetics only accounts for maybe 3% of how long you live.
Only 3%. So it's not mostly destiny.
Apparently not. Most of aging seems to be just the slow buildup of tiny flaws, little bits of damage, until the whole system gets fragile. It can't handle shocks anymore, and then it breaks down.
And this unavoidable physical fragility crashes right into this powerful cultural idea we've built up, especially in the West.
Oh yeah, the absolute reverence for the independent self.
Which really took off with retirement, right? Prosperity, pensions.
Exactly. Suddenly, older people could live apart from their kids. This whole new idea of intimacy at a distance, total freedom.
Which sounds great. I mean, who doesn't want independence?
Right. But that's the catch. Society started valuing independence almost above all else, but dependence. It's inevitable if you live long enough.
So if independence is the only goal, What happens when you physically can't be independent anymore? What's left?
That's the crisis. That mindset creates so much of the suffering we see in how we handle aging. It sets people up for despair when reality hits.
Which brings us to the institutions designed to handle that reality. Nursing homes. We need to talk about where they came from.
Yeah, and it's not a pretty history. It starts with those 19th century poorhouses, or asylums.
Which weren't just for the elderly, right?
No, not at all. They crammed everyone together, the poor, the mentally ill, the elderly. Conditions were often, well, the source calls them abominable.
Separating couples, basic hygiene lacking.
Terrible. And the elderly, they were terrified of being sent there. It was like being imprisoned.
So how did we get from that to the modern nursing home? It wasn't exactly a carefully planned improvement, was it?
Not really. It kind of happened by accident, as the book puts it. After World War II, hospitals needed to free up beds.
So they moved long-term patients out.
Yeah, into these convalescent homes, which then evolved. And later, Medicare and Medicaid rules heavily influenced their structure.
How so?
The regulations focused almost entirely on safety and medical care, sanitation standards, nurse staffing ratios, preventing falls. All crucial, obviously, but
But maybe missing something.
missing the human element. The focus on safety often squeezed out things like personal choice, spontaneity, engagement, quality of life, really.
Which leads directly to this concept from Dr. Bill Thomas. He looked at nursing home residents and saw they weren't just suffering from illness.
Right. He identified what he called the three plagues.
Boredom, loneliness, and helplessness.
Exactly. A life stripped of meaning, connection, and control. Even if you're physically safe and cared for.
So what did he do about it? His approach was unconventional.
Radically unconventional. His Big Bang experiment at Chase Memorial Nursing Home. He decided the antidote to these plagues was life itself. Chaos. Unpredictability.
This is the animal story, isn't it?
It is. He brought in 2 dogs, 4 cats, 100 birds.
100 birds, including parakeets in the beauty salon.
Yep. 100 parakeets let loose in the beauty salon, plus tons of plants, gardens, indoors and out. He wanted to inject life, spontaneity, even a little bit of risk back into the environment.
It's such a shift in thinking. From a sterile, controlled environment focused only on preventing bad things.
To an environment focused on enabling good things. Enabling life, purpose, connection. Even if it meant, someone might occasionally trip over a cat.
The trade-off was worth it for the vitality it brought back.
And the results were apparently dramatic. There's the story of one resident, Mr. L. He'd basically given up, lost the will to live. They gave him the job of walking the dogs, gave him a purpose, and he started improving. He regained strength, regained his spirit, and eventually got well enough to go home.
Wow. The underlying medical condition maybe didn't change drastically, but his reason for living did.
Precisely. His spirit was healed, you could say.
And this idea of focusing on the person, not just the patient, connects to Karen Brown Wilson's work too, right? With assisted living.
Yes, her vision was about creating spaces where people were treated as Morador's residents, not Duante's patients.
It sounds like a small language shift, but it implies a big difference.
Huge difference. It meant things like having a door you could lock, being able to keep a pet,
Right.
controlling your own room temperature, choosing your food, basic autonomy.
Choice, control over your own small world.
Exactly. Putting autonomy sometimes ahead of absolute safety. But, and this is a big but, the system often fights against these very positive changes.
Ah, yes, the geriatrics paradox. This part of the research is, frankly, infuriating.
It really is. It comes from the study at the University of Minnesota. They showed that specialized geriatric teams, doctors, nurses, social workers, focused on the whole person, on maintaining function and purpose.
Like we're effective.
Incredibly effective. Patients under their care were 25% less likely to become disabled, 50% less likely to get depressed. They needed less home care later on. Huge benefits.
Okay, so that sounds like a massive win. Better outcomes, probably cheaper in the long run.
You'd think so. But the geriatrics department that ran the study, it got shut down.
Shut down, why?
Because the cost of providing that better, preventative, person-centered care, about $1,350 extra per patient for the focused teamwork, wasn't reimbursed by insurance.
Wait, so the preventative care that worked wasn't paid for?
But the expensive stuff, the emergency room visits, the surgeries, the reactive, high-cost procedures that often happen after someone declines, those were covered.
That's completely backward. The system actively pays for failure, for reactive crisis management, but not for the proactive care that actually improves lives and likely saves money down the road.
That's the paradox. The financial incentives are aligned with intervention, with procedures, not with maintaining well-being and autonomy. It shows you where the system's priorities lie, unfortunately.
Which leads us right into the really tough decisions people face towards the end. This hope is not a plan dilemma.
Yeah, the immense pressure, emotional, financial, even societal, to just keep pursuing aggressive treatments, more chemo, ventilators, defibrillators, even when the chances of meaningful benefit are tiny.
And the costs are staggering. The source mentions, what, 25% of U.S. Medicare spending is in the last year of life?
That's right, and a huge chunk of that is crammed into the last month or two,
Ooh,
often resulting in more suffering for the patient and actually worse grief and trauma for the family left behind.
It feels like a runaway train sometimes,
Yeah.
which makes the findings on palliative care even more important.
Oh, absolutely. That 2010 study from Massachusetts General Hospital on stage 4V lung cancer patients, it's landmark stuff.
Right, they had two groups. Standard cancer treatment for one.
And the other group got standard treatment plus early palliative care integrated right from the start.
And palliative care here didn't mean giving up. It meant having conversations.
Exactly. It meant doctors regularly talking with patients early on about their fears, their priorities, what actually mattered most to them besides just shrinking the tumor. What does a good day look like for you now? What are you willing to go through for what outcome?
Okay, and the results just blew the standard medical thinking out of the water.
Completely counterintuitive. The patients who got early palliative care, they reported less depression, better quality of life. They actually stopped aggressive chemotherapy sooner.
And they lived longer.
And they lived longer. On average, 25% longer than the group getting only standard oncology care.
That is just astonishing. Better quality of life and longer quantity of life by focusing on the person's goals and comfort rather than just attacking the disease relentlessly. How does that even work?
It's complex, likely multiple factors. Less debilitating side effects from chemo they chose to forgo. Maybe less physiological stress from anxiety and depression. But fundamentally, I think it's about regaining a sense of control, aligning medical care with what actually provides meaning and purpose for that individual. They focus their energy on living well within their limits.
Which underscores the importance of having these difficult conversations. The source argues it's a skill, like surgery.
As much skill as surgery, yeah. It's not just about being Dr. Informativo, rattling off statistics and treatment options.
Right. It's about helping the person navigate the fear, the uncertainty, and figure out what their non-negotiables are.
What really makes life worth living for them specifically?
Like the example of the expert's own father, facing a terminal illness.
Yeah, his line in the sand wasn't about cure or even time, it was specific. He wanted to live as long as he could, provided he could still eat chocolate ice cream and watch football on TV.
That was his minimum for quality of life. Chocolate ice cream and football.
That was it. If treatment allowed for that, okay. If it meant he couldn't do those things, then he wanted comfort care. It's so personal you can't guess it. You have to ask.
So when you pull all these threads together, from Sitaram dying at home to the institutional failures, the geriatrics paradox, the power of palliative care, the ultimate goal seems to shift, doesn't it?
It really does. It moves away from this narrow technical goal of merely prolonging biological life at any cost.
Towards what?
Towards ensuring that people can, as the source puts it, continue to mold the story of their life in the world right up until the very end.
So prioritizing their story, their choices, their relationships, their dignity over just another medical procedure.
Exactly. Autonomy within the reality of frailty.
And it feels like we're starting to recognize this. We're moving away slowly from purely institutionalized endings. But the book says we're still novices at this.
Yeah, we're beginners in figuring out how to actually support this better way of aging and dying. The social structures, the financial incentives, they haven't caught up with this more human-centered understanding.
Which brings us to the final idea from the work. Courage.
Right. Courage, in this context, means facing two realities head-on. First, accepting that biology and chance, they have limits. They will eventually win. We can't control everything.
That's the hard truth.
It is. But the second reality is just as important. Even within those limits, as our abilities narrow, we also are not powerless.
We still have agency.
We still have the chance to shape our story, to make choices that align with who we are and what we value, right to the end.
So maybe the question we should leave everyone mulling over is this. Think about it now, before you're in a crisis. What are your minimal conditions? What makes life worth living for you? What's your personal chocolate ice cream and football?
It's a conversation worth having. With yourself and with the people you love. Define your terms while you can.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll talk to you next time.